Shabbat Shalom. Almost.
Shabbat Shalom.
There we are.
We are coming to you live right now from Temple Ner Tamid.
Indeed.
And we're going to begin with a nigun that we've added some words to, penned actually by our cantor. El Rachum V'Chanun Erech Apayim. These words, which are actually in this week's Torah portion, talks about God who is full of compassion and who is patient. And that idea, compassion and patience, not only are the fundamental characteristics of God, but also they are what we need most right now. And so we will sing together these words. El Rachum V'Chanun.
El Rachum
V'Chanun Erech Apayim. El Rachum V'Chanun Erech Apayim. El Rachum V'Chanun
Slow it down.
El Rachum
Slow
V'Chanun
it down. Slow it down.
El Rachum V'Chanun Alpayim. El
One more time. El Rachum
V'Chanun Erech Alpayim. El Rachum V'Chanun Erech Alpayim.
Slow it down. So, welcome. We hope that you've figured out how to open your virtual Siddur. If you have trouble tonight, let us know, and we will, over the next few days, do our best to get a prayer book to you. But right now, we're going to turn in our Siddurim if they're there for you. If not, you'll probably know this one. Shalom Aleichem. Welcome, you ministering angels that we don't see but feel as they hold us tonight. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharim, Malachei Elyon. Melech Malachei Hamachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Moachem Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Melech Malachei Hamachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Shalom, Baruch Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Melech Malachei Hamachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzidchem לשלום, מלאכי השלום, מלאכי עליון. מלך מלאכי המלאכים, הקדוש ברוך ברוך.
And so once again, if you're looking for where your virtual prayer book is, you can find it online in any of the emails that you've gotten from us over the course of the past few days. There's a link to it. It is a PDF online that you need to not only scroll the opposite way you think, but also give it a second to load the page. So if you're scrolling and you find the page and it's blank, just let it load and eventually you will reach that page. And we begin with page number 2 as we prepare to kindle our lights for Shabbat.
Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom, Rabbi Katz.
Shabbat Shalom, Cantor. So we prepare to greet the Sabbath bride. We are on page 20 if you are following along. And a reminder, if you need a prayer book, please email us. We'll make sure you get it by next Shabbat. Shabbat, b'nei Shabbat nekaber, ya la 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 l'chad dodi, ya la la ya la 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 likrat kala, ya la 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 b'nei Shabbat nekaber. בדיבור אחד השמיענו אל המאוחד אדוני אחד ושמו אחד לשמו תפארת Verse number 5, Hitoreri. 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 Kiva Uri. Shir Daberi. Shabbat, Shabbat, So one of the amazing things is that wherever you have a door, that is where the Shabbat bride comes in. So I want to invite everybody to turn their bodies toward the door of wherever you walked into the room that you are in now.
גם בשמחה ובצהלה תוך אמוני עם סגולה בואי חלה בואי חלה la 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 לקחת אותי יא אליי יא la 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 לקראת חלל יא la 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 בני שבת נקווה יא la 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 לקחת אותי יא אליי יא la 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 לקראת חלל יא la 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 בני Shabbat
So the idea of being ready has always been an interesting one. Everything up until now has been a rehearsal. It's been a warm-up. The Baruch Hu is officially that call to worship. It's our time to really say, we are ready. And the truth is, you can be ready in slippers. You can be ready in a robe. You can be ready sitting with this and the television on at the same time. You can be ready with your family crowded around you. You can be ready while you're eating dinner and this providing background music. You can be ready in any number of ways. The key is to look inside, figure out what exactly ready means to you as we officially begin the Mariv, the kind of central section of our service with the Baruch Hu.
Moving forward in our tefillah, we're going to take a moment to see if we can summon the place of awe that lives in us. B'chokhmah poteach she'arim. In your wisdom, God, you open the gates of all for us to be in tonight, to enter in together from far distance, because you are so close. B'chokhmah poteach she'arim. In your wisdom, we open with you. B'chokhmah poteach, b'chokhmah poteach, b'chokhmah poteach she'arim. B'chokhmah
moment, we're going to move forward to our Shema, which is on page 34. And one of the prayers that we say before this talks about God giving us unending love, ahavat olam. In this time where we feel such isolation, where many of us haven't been outside today or yesterday, and don't plan on being outside in the next day or more. Being reminded that we are loved is something very, very important. Knowing that God loves us, knowing that others love us, knowing that there are open hands and arms when it is safe that are ready to embrace us, can carry us through this isolation. So I want us to hold that in our hearts, as together, not only do we feel God's love, but we show God love through the recitation of the Shema, page 34. Page 36. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha v'hayu advarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavecha ayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha ודיברת בעם, בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ושוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך, ובשעריך, למען תזכרו, ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. אדוני אלוהיכם, אמת. We're together on page 40 as we join together in the joyous song Mi Chamocha.
ידע אדוני את יעקב, וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו. ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
I mentioned 2 weeks ago that the next prayer that we're going to do, the Hashkivenu, found on page 42, is a prayer about unease. It's a prayer that our ancestors penned at night because night was the scariest time for them. And therefore, they needed to ask God to make their feet steady at an unsteady time. Well, we haven't needed this prayer more, I don't think, in recent memory. And so I want to invite us all to kind of embrace right now that sense of unsteadiness, but also to acknowledge that sometimes in that unsteadiness, the best that we can do is to pray for sure footing. Hashkivenu, page 42. In a moment, we're going to turn forward in our prayer books to page 155. And after this opening meditation, asking God to open up our lips that our mouth may declare God's praise, we'll move into silence. We've tried hard to face the camera, which is why you haven't seen us stand and move around for much of this service. But in a moment, you're going to see us turn our backs to you as we face the ark. And together, facing east, facing our Torah, we'll say whatever words are in your heart. And I'm sure there are many. So we rise together, page 155.
שפתי תפתח ופי יגיד תהילתך
Sifatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha.
So we join together. We can kind of feel all of you here with us, praying for shlemut, for wholeness. We chose this tune because for many of us, this is a tune that feels like home. And we hope that you know that we're all here at home together.
Shalom bimroma, hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru amen. Useh shalom bimroma, יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ויאמרו אמן. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. ועל כל יושבי תבל ויאמרו אמן.
And so tonight, we have an important task to do, and that is to hold closely, even more closely in our hearts, those who are in need of healing. As we've said so many times before, it's not so much that we are looking for solutions as it is for a path of peace, no matter the state of being we are in, wellness across the spectrum to unwell. It could be tonight the body, it could be the spirit. Whatever it is that needs to be felt and known as needing healing breath and healing love, we're going to send it there. for ourselves, for each other, for those we know who are in need of healing in our greater communities. And in a moment, we'll sing the first verse of the Mishaberach L'Cholim on page 253, the one you know well, and then we'll pause and read names of those in our community who are in need, and we will say their names aloud, and then we'll pause for a few extra moments so that you can say names of others.
May the source of strength who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen.
Ephraim ben Wolfe Ruchalea, Mimi Jacobs, Joshua Gendel, and Rosenberg Harav Meir Simcha ben Shena, Eileen Smith, Zachar Yaakov ben Karen, Chiara D'Agostino, Yehudit Devoa, Batova Umoshe, Jill Turetsky, Laura Bellamy, Bonnie Horowitz, Lori Ann Romele, Linda Paintner Levine, Charlotte Ganzer, Andrea Pinelli, Claude Pomper, Renee Jacobson, Edith Shavat, Mina Seaman, Lila Margolis, Sharon Rosen, Randy Lowe, Miriam Bat Esther, Joanne Jelsi Fusco, Stephen Raitt, Lillian Wexler, Ed Lillenschmidt, Esther Gittel Bat Rivka, Jerry Hoffman, Gavriel Bat Chava, Tegan Kaiser, Gabe Patnoy, Beryl Ben Pinchas, Veruchalea, Alexander Roberts, Rosalind Wellner, Irving Berlin, David Ben Chenu, Elijah Richards, Phyllis Natter, Wolfle Ben Pesach Vester, Diane Felder, Stephen Penny, Roberta Sandler Feld, Barbara Lesser, Nachman Zalman Ben Rachalea, Phyllis Shankman, Jean Siegel, Sherry Newworth, Celia Zeisel, Paul Leggett, Phil Murphy, Harriet Heinig, Yonatan Yisrael Ben Rivka, those who are struggling with any afflictions, challenges, we call their names out. Elka Gittel Bat Sarah. We join back together.
Those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
Shabbat Shalom. So, I think I'm going to stand as I give this Devar Torah. I want to speak about this week's Torah portion in light of the idea of loneliness. Now, I've talked about loneliness a lot in our community, in part because it's what I tend to write about, and also because I've been teaching classes on it. But I have to imagine that many of us, if we aren't already, in the coming days, will begin to feel lonely. We'll begin to feel alienated. We'll begin to feel isolated. We will begin to feel like there is no one there. And I want to say that there's a specific way that loneliness manifests in this week's Torah portion, in two distinct characters, one being God and one being Aaron. Now, we know, many of us, the story that happens in this week's Torah portion. The people are nervous because Moses has been up on Mount Sinai for 40 days and 40 nights. And so what do? They go to Aaron and they say to Aaron, build us a god, because we don't know what has happened to Moses and we need this tangible figure of God before us. So Aaron listens and he builds this calf and the people worship it. Until God finds out, sends Moses down, who destroys the calf. And our commentators have asked a really important question, a question that I've studied a little bit with some of us in our community, which is, why did Aaron build that calf? And one of the answers they give is that they originally, the people, came to a different person whose name is Hur, H-U-R, and said to him, build us the calf. Now, he was actually an important character. He was standing beside Moses as Moses led the people in a war only a few chapters before. He also went up with Moses on top of Sinai to kind of see God a little bit with some of the chieftains. And then we don't hear from him ever again in the Torah. And so if there is this guy so important named Hur who just disappears, why might that be? So the rabbis imagine that the people come to him, ask him to build them this calf. He says no, and they kill him. And so now they go to Aaron, and they say to Aaron, build us this calf. And Aaron realizes that the writing is on the wall. If he doesn't, he too will be punished. If he does, he'll take the sin on himself, but he'll live. And the people, by building the calf, did a bad thing, but punishing Moses' brother is perhaps worse. And so Aaron decides to do this. Now, in that moment, one of the things that I've observed about Aaron is that Aaron stopped being a person and started being a means to an end. He started being a tool. He started being the religious voice at the disposal of the people to gain access to whatever God they needed. It didn't matter that Aaron didn't want to. It didn't matter that Aaron was hurting. It didn't matter that Aaron was scared. The people just wanted something from Aaron, and they took it. A hard position for Aaron to be in. Because in that moment, Aaron lost his personhood. And you know what? In that scenario, so did God. Because God has tried so hard to appear to the people. God has brought 10 plagues upon Egypt. God has split the sea. God has given the Torah on Mount Sinai. God led the people through the desert already for an extended period of time, giving them manna and turning bitter waters into sweet waters, winning battles against Amalek. The people should have believed in God by that point. But God was only a way to assuage their fears. And thus, when God disappeared to talk to Moses for 40 days and 40 nights, the people too took things into their own hands. For them, it didn't matter who God was, how God felt, whether God was going to be upset or angry, hurt, or devastated. The people simply wanted the calf. And no longer did they see God. They saw a means to comfort. And so they built that golden idol. Aaron and God have in common this idea that the worst thing that we can do for another person is to stop seeing them in their full personhood, or in God's case, their full godness, but rather see them as a means. See them as only one piece of what they affect us rather than who they are. And I've been thinking a lot about this because loneliness is caused by the distance between the person you know yourself to be and the number of people in the world who can see you in that fullness. And if you only see a person through their means, if you only see them through one little feature, you lose who they are in their fullness. And that is what causes alienation and loneliness. Aaron was lonely in the moment the people stopped seeing him in his fullness. God, says our tradition, was lonely as the people stopped seeing God in God's fullness. And I have to imagine that many of you here are lonely because the truth is society only sees you as a sickness and as a disease. What does it mean to have to go into social isolation? It means, and here's the risk, that we are going to forget about the people who are in social isolation. We are going to see one aspect of their being, their potential for carrying disease, their potential for being sick, them as vectors for some kind of statistic that would cause us to, quote, flatten the curve. And as important as that is to provide that distance, and as much as it is going to create a much safer society when people are locked away. They are locked away because people have only seen them in their potential to spread sickness and disease. And if you're only seen as that way and you are forgotten about in any other way than people being afraid of you, there is nothing left but to feel isolated, alienated, and lonely. So what can we do about it? We can fix the folly that Aaron has faced, and fix the folly that God has faced, and fix the folly that our society is heading toward right now. And we can begin to acknowledge that behind closed doors and locked windows, behind apartments that may never open because people are not going to step out, are human souls who yearn for love and connection, and we can reach out. If you have someone that you know who may not be leaving their house, you need to call them. If there is someone in the community who is even an acquaintance, you need to reach out. Every single person here has access to our database that allows us to find people that we may know and to reach out. The cantor and I will be doing this over the course of the coming weeks for those who are the most vulnerable in our community. But every single one of us can do that as well. We need to let people know that despite the fact that most people see them as a potential for sickness, we don't. We see them as the loving, brilliant, open, God-touched human being that they are. And it's our task, every single one of us, to find avenues to remind people they are more than vectors in an equation. They are people worthy of love. Shabbat Shalom. We're going to turn to page 282 for Aleinu. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'atei gedula liotzer breshit, shelo asanu kigoye haratzot, velo samanu kemishpechot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. Page 287. ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד. We turn forward in our prayer books to page 294. Our thoughts now turn to those we love who have passed from life. As is the way of our people through our recitation of Kaddish, we honor their lives by praising God for letting us walk at their side and they at ours for even our little time. I invite you, if you are so inclined, to individually rise at your seat as I call the name of your loved one. Yard sites for this Shabbat are Jack Abrahams, Abraham Alexander, Harold Alexander, Alfred Assion, Solomon Behar, Milton Brook, Hal Brandman, Gussie Holland, Kamisa, Molly Cohn, David Dobrin, Louis Jurian, Miriam Feldman, Richard Festa, Berthold Fleissig, Babette Fortune, Bayet Gallon, Erwin Geller, Francis Goldstein, Milton Goldstein, Joseph Godhelf, David Gould, Lillian Gushin, Eva Halpern, Henry Hirsch Kalter, Ellie Kaplan, Rose Katowitz, Bill Kaufman, Bernard Kirchenbaum, Tessie Klein, Julia Klein, Seymour Krevlin, Isidore Latz, Thelma Malkin, Ida Mandel, Bessie Ruth Maybe, Bruce Menkes, Shirley Moskowitz, Edward Nobler, Bernard Novak, Benjamin Peretz, Elidia Pessina, Miriam Garcia Pedroza, Stephen Rosen, Bertha Rosenberg, Rosalind Rosenblatt, Sidney Rudolph, Jesse Selter, Dora Sherman, Ivan Siskin, Philip Spindle, Adolph Spitz, Gerald Stein, Mark Sutton Smith, and Florence Weinstock. And for those in their Shiva and Shloshim periods of mourning, Anita Cassell, wife of Jack Cassell, mother of Morgan and Courtney Cassell, Rabbi Robert Rosenberg, son of Rabbi Martin Rosenberg and brother of Karen Rosenberg Berman, Harvey Morgenstein, father of Karen Hogg, David and Mark Morgenstern, Ronaldo Leon, father of Maribel Leon, and Eleanor Adler, grandmother of Mark Ben-Ami. And we'll pause to invite you in your own way to add names that may not have been on this list, or names of other yard sites or one-year mourning that you are experiencing. Mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah, bi'alma divrach irutei v'yamlech malchutei, b'chayechon u'v'yom echon u'v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'vizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam u'lamei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal l'shemei d'kedusha berichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiram bi'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama Rabbah min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru.
Amen.
May the source of peace and peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved. As together we say, Amen. So, a few just announcements as we head into our closing song. Tomorrow morning, services are at 10 a.m. We're once again going to be live streaming them, and we hope that you will tune in and help us to make a virtual minyan. At 9 a.m., we have a virtual tot experience,
Woo-woo.
if you're watching.
Yep.
We posted on our Shoresh page, and I'm happy to send you the link if you email me, a Zoom link, because we want this to be interactive. So rather than us just stream it, we wanted people on so we could, ask questions about, where they feel their Shabbat feeling and all kinds of stuff like that.
Is it going to be in their toes or in their nose, or we'll find out tomorrow.
Exactly. Also, stay tuned. Over the course of this next week, we're going to put plans into play. Probably it won't launch until a week or so later, but we want to create lots of virtual experiences for all of us for learning and gathering. And so we don't know how long this is going to last for, and we want to make sure that if you want to pray during the day, if you want to learn during the day, we are here for you. And so look out as we spend the week putting a really robust calendar together that will probably launch the week after.
And so as we leave our virtual Shabbat celebration, hopefully you're going to take it with you. We're going to end the way we began. Just a reminder to be compassionate with yourself. Here we are, needing to slow down, forcing ourselves to slow. Maybe this is just what we needed to remember what's most important, to breathe into the mystery. Kiddush and Motzi, right, Rabbi?
Absolutely.
All right.
So we will say,
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho b'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu, zikaron lema'aseh b'reishit, ki hu yom techila lemikrae kodesh, zecher letziat Mitzrayim, ki banu bacharta, ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים, בשבת קודשך, באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת.
Amen.
And we'll join together in our motzi.
Should I have a drink?
Go for it.
L'chaim.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz.
B'te'avon. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat
friends.
shalom, and see some of you tomorrow morning.